Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with Stock Analytics AI. We're going to be taking a look at a really interesting company today, um, Bit Origin. They're in the Bitcoin mining space, but their story is a bit of a head scratcher, to say the least.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I mean, on the one hand, you've got some pretty alarming financial numbers, declining revenue, negative profit margins, even some NASDAQ compliance notices.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, their stock price has been surging recently.
Mm.
So we're going to try to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, unpack this whole story.
Exactly. We've got a deep dive research report on Bit Origin that we're going to be dissecting.
And it's a doozy, let me tell you.
So if you're interested in the world of crypto and you love a good mystery, then you're definitely in the right place.
Definitely.
All right, so let's jump right in. Chapter 1 of our deep dive is all about understanding Bit Origin's business model.
Right.
At the core, they're a Bitcoin mining company, but they're trying to differentiate themselves in a couple of key ways.
Yeah.
First off, they're emphasizing their use of AI. They say they're using artificial intelligence to optimize their mining operations and make them more efficient.
Interesting.
And secondly, they're really pushing their commitment to sustainability. They want to be seen as the green Bitcoin mining company.
That makes sense, given how energy-intensive mining can be. It's a huge factor for these companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now they even have a dedicated U.S. subsidiary called Sonic Hash LLC that's solely focused on mining operations.
Oh, wow. So they're really serious about this.
Oh, yeah. It seems like they're going all in on this. But here's where things start to get a little bit murky.
Okay.
When you look at their financials, Chapter 3 of our deep dive, it's not exactly a pretty picture.
Right.
I mean, we're talking some pretty serious red flags here.
Uh-oh.
Like, their revenue growth has absolutely plummeted. I mean, it's down over 53% year over year.
Wow, that's steep.
Yeah, and their profit margins are deep in the negative territory. I'm talking negative 606%.
Negative 606%.
Yeah, it's almost like they're losing money for every dollar of revenue they generate.
Oof.
Yeah, oof is right. And then on top of all that, their debt-to-equity ratio is sitting at a rather uncomfortable 3.61.
So they're carrying a lot of debt, basically.
Oh, yeah, a lot of debt, especially for a company in such a volatile industry like crypto mining.
Yeah, that's a risky combination.
It really is.
Yeah.
And get this, their revenue has actually been on a downward trend.
Yeah.
And in the last 6 months, they've reported $0 in revenue.
Zero.
Zero.
Okay, so how are they even operating at this point?
That's a good question, and it leads us to another crucial aspect of their story, which is the management team. Chapter 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so are these the people we want at the helm?
Well, let's just say there's some things that raise some eyebrows. For starters, they've had a bit of a history of compliance issues with NASDAQ.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, they've received notices about minimum bid price deficiency and minimum stockholders' equity noncompliance.
That doesn't sound good.
Not really a vote of confidence, is it?
Not at all.
And when you dig a little deeper into their board of directors, you see a lot of new and relatively inexperienced members.
Oh, so not exactly the dream team you'd want steering the ship through a storm.
More like a bunch of people who've never sailed before.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's where the real head scratcher comes in.
Okay.
Despite all these red flags, their stock price has been surging recently.
So what's going on there? Is there something we're missing?
That's the million-dollar question. And to answer it, we're going to need to take a closer look at market sentiment, their ownership structure, and the potential risks and opportunities they're facing.
Yeah, a deep dive into the deep dive.
Exactly. So stick around because we've got a lot more to unpack when we come back for part 2. Welcome back to the show, everyone. We're still unraveling the enigma that is Bit Origin. Before the break, we were talking about their financials and management, and let's just say there were some pretty big question marks.
Yeah, it's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? They've got all these red flags, but their stock is somehow surging?
Exactly. So let's try to make sense of that. Chapter 4 of our deep dive is all about market sentiment, and despite that recent surge, the overall feeling around Bit Origin is pretty negative.
Yeah, that makes sense. Their stock has taken a massive hit over the past year. I mean, we're talking a drop of over 94%. And the technical analysis, well, it's not painting a rosy picture. Plus, they got that NASDAQ minimum bid price deficiency notice.
Right. It's like the market is basically saying, well, this doesn't look good.
Yeah, pretty much. And the media hasn't been kind to them either. There's been a lot of negative coverage focusing on their financial struggles.
So you've got all this negative sentiment weighing them down, but sometimes that can actually create opportunities.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. When everyone's convinced a stock is going down, Even a small piece of good news can trigger a surge as short sellers rush to cover their positions.
Ah, I see. It's like a coiled spring, suddenly releasing all that pent-up energy.
Exactly. So the question is there anything positive happening with Bit Origin that could explain this recent surge? And that brings us back to a point we touched on earlier, the Auspice project.
Right. Their plan to build a new crypto mining data center in Wyoming, didn't they secure a pretty hefty chunk of funding for that?
Yeah, over $24 million.
Hmm.
So could this be the catalyst that everyone's overlooking, the project that changes the whole story around Bit Origin?
It's possible, but we have to remember their track record. Their history of capital allocation isn't exactly stellar. I mean, have they really shown that they can turn investments into profits?
That's a really good point. So while the Auspice project might sound good on paper, there's no guarantee they'll be able to execute it effectively. And even if they do, the profitability of this whole venture depends on the price of Bitcoin, which is notoriously unpredictable, and the whole mining landscape, which is constantly changing.
Right. So it's a gamble, plain and simple. And that leads us to Chapter 5, ownership structure. This is where things get even more interesting.
Okay, what's the story there?
Well, the thing that really jumps out is the incredibly low level of institutional and insider ownership. We're talking just 1.07% held by institutions and a measly 1.1% by insiders.
Wow, those are tiny numbers. It's like the captain and crew are abandoning ship before it even leaves the harbor.
Yeah, it's not exactly a vote of confidence, is it?
Not at all. So we've got negative market sentiment, low insider ownership, and a risky new project that might be driving the stock surge. But to really understand where Bit Origin stands, we need to move on to Chapter 6, risk assessment. And for this, we'll use the classic SWOT analysis.
Oh yeah, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's always a helpful framework.
Exactly. So let's start with the positives. What are Bit Origin strengths?
Well, they've definitely been talking up their focus on AI-driven optimization and their commitment to sustainability. They're trying to position themselves as the smart and green mining company.
Right. And that could appeal to some investors, especially those who are concerned about the environmental impact of crypto mining.
For sure. But let's not sugarcoat it. Their weaknesses are pretty substantial.
Oh yeah, for sure. Their small scale and limited market cap are major disadvantages in this industry. And we've already talked about their low institutional and insider ownership, which doesn't exactly inspire confidence. And then there's the elephant in the room, their high debt-to-equity ratio and their history of financial losses.
Yeah, those are some serious concerns. But to be fair, let's also look at the opportunities that Bit Origin might be able to capitalize on.
Okay, so what could they potentially do to turn things around?
While strategic partnerships and acquisitions could be a way to quickly gain market share and expertise, they could also consider expanding into new markets or even branching out beyond Bitcoin mining, maybe exploring other blockchain technologies.
So it's not necessarily a dead end for them. There are paths they could take to achieve success. But let's not forget about the threats they're facing either.
Yeah, this industry is full of them. The volatility of Bitcoin prices is constant danger. Mining difficulty is increasing all the time. Regulatory changes could completely disrupt their business model. And then there's the competition from those industry giants.
Right. And let's not forget about the environmental concerns surrounding crypto mining. That's a big issue that's not going away anytime soon.
So it's a mixed bag, to say the least. They've got some potential strengths and opportunities, but they're also facing some significant weaknesses and threats.
It's a real roller coaster ride. We'll try to make sense of it all and draw some conclusions when we come back for the final part of our deep dive into Bit Origin. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been spending this episode picking apart Bit Origin, and I have to say it's a fascinating but confusing story.
It really is. On the surface, they seem to be struggling. I mean, their financials are shaky, their management decisions are questionable, and the future, well, it's uncertain to say the least.
But their stock price has been going up. So what's the deal? What's driving that surge, and is there actually anything behind it, or is it all just hype?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer. The market doesn't always behave in a completely rational way. Sometimes emotions, rumors, speculation can drive prices up or down, and it doesn't always make sense.
So are you saying this surge could just be a case of irrational exuberance? Just a temporary blip fueled by speculation and not by any real improvement in Bit Origin's prospects?
It's definitely possible, but we have to consider that Auspice project again, that big crypto mining data center they're building in Wyoming. They got a lot of funding for it, and they're really pushing it as a potential game changer.
Right. So let's play devil's advocate here. What if this project really is the key to their success. What if they manage to execute it perfectly and it brings in the revenue they need? Could that explain the stock surge?
It's not impossible. If Auspice is a big success, it could really change things for them. And this is but we have to look at their track record. They haven't exactly been great at managing investments and turning them into profit.
This is a gamble.
Absolutely. It all comes down to execution. They have to prove to the market that they can actually deliver on their promises. If they can, it might be the turning point they need. But if they mess it up, it could be the end of the line.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Should they invest in Bit Origin, or is it too risky?
That's a tough one. It's a high-risk, high-reward situation. There's potential for big gains if they turn things around, but the risks are huge too. It's not a stock for someone who's risk-averse.
Yeah, it's definitely not a set-it-and-forget-it investment. Anyone thinking about Bit Origin needs to be prepared for volatility, and they need to understand that they could lose everything.
Exactly. Do your research, understand the risks, and don't invest more than you can afford to lose. That's crucial.
Great advice. So to wrap things up, Bit Origin is a company with a lot of potential, but also a lot of uncertainty. They've got some exciting projects in the works, but their financials and management raise some serious concerns.
It's a complex picture, and there's no easy answer.
Well said. So listeners, we've given you the information, we've analyzed the data, and now it's up to you to make an informed decision. Remember, investing always involves risk, so be careful out there.
And if you want to learn more about stock analysis and how to make smart investment decisions, don't forget to subscribe to the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel. We've got tons of great content there.
That's right. And as always, a quick disclaimer. The information we've shared today is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Always do your own research and talk to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
And remember, artificial intelligence is a powerful tool, but it's not a crystal ball. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results.
Well, folks, that's our deep dive into Bit Origin. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, happy investing.